So, ladies and gentlemen, this is a previous client of mine. His name is Harry. Harry, do you want to go ahead and tell us what exactly we did together and what company you were running?
So I was running SellersMint. I made in that 1 month, the best month that is, it was 28 grand worth USD of deals closed, with the average order value of about 3K USD.
That's so awesome. And yeah, so Harry, you did what exactly was your business doing? Like, what were you helping people with?
Yeah, so I've got a background I've got 2 years of experience at that point of Amazon FBA, specifically the wholesale model.
Hmm.
So I got pretty good at that and had no idea that I would be doing any sort of mentorship whatsoever, or selling my knowledge or whatever. It was simply me just actually doing what I was teaching for 2 years straight, just grinding away, sending thousands of units into Amazon. Did quite well for myself there. So really, what I was doing when it came to working with yourself was packaging that up and helping people do the exact same thing.
Yeah, 100%. So this was like this was a coaching service, wasn't it?
Yeah, coaching.
Yeah,
That's
you're
it.
you're like you were an Amazon FBA coach, right?
That's
And
right. That's right.
that's awesome. So obviously you went from Amazon FBA um to a coaching service, and I know we can go into this later. You do a different business model now because you made a hard
Yeah.
pivot, natural
Yeah. Yeah.
evolution. What made you go from what you were doing before to actually go into the coaching space?
Yeah, so let's just explain how that even happened then in the first place. So
Yeah.
went from went from obviously doing Amazon FBA myself, and then
Hmm.
I thought, okay, let me start rolling out my own product line because my background is in sort of making with my hand and designing products, right? So okay, I've got all this knowledge from selling. Now let me sell my own product. So I started doing R&D in that for quite a while. And then it came to the point that every business owner has to go through, which is, right, how am I going to get people to see this, right? And that's where you came in. So saw your videos online, your Instagram reels. In fact, my brother, who's like 4 years younger than me, has seen your videos, and when he was like, "Oh yeah, you is Hadlin doing the marketing stuff with you?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh wow, I've seen him on Instagram." So yeah, I basically just DM'd you. uh, we started looking into selling this product I was doing. Is like it was like that lithophane lamp stuff, the 3D printed, whatever,
Yeah.
bespoke stuff. Um, and then you kind of gave me the sort of reality check in terms of what's actually going to be involved in doing this. And it was solid advice because I could have gone down the wrong route if I didn't listen to that, which was, I think there was a statistic that you mentioned about that you have to see a customer has to see a product about 7 times before they end up actually buying it. Each time they see it is a cost of some sort to your bank account, right? In terms of the ad spend.
Yeah.
Um, and if we just ran the maths on how much that would truly cost, especially because at this point, like, I didn't have like 100 grand to throw at this, right? Which is what you normally need for a massive scale e-commerce business.
Hmm.
Um, I thought, okay, it might not be exactly the road I want to go down.
Yeah.
It could have worked,
The
but I was a bit impatient at the time, let's be honest.
I mean, most people are like no one really wants to go through a period of like pain and like trying to grow a business, spending
Yeah,
hundreds of thousands if there's like especially if they don't have that, or if they just want to wait that long, right? Because that's how you get burnt out, and it's not exactly the best position to be in. So
right.
you did FBA, you wanted to create your own product line, which was an e-commerce store, and like yes, to be honest, the idea was great. I really did like it, but naturally it wasn't, I guess, suitable. I've got a quick question for you, and I wanted your opinion on this. For those guys who are more so beginners,
Yeah.
and they want to do a business of some degree, do you recommend, like, from your personal experience now, because it's one thing coming from me, what would you say about people that are considering doing an e-commerce store?
When it comes to running an e-commerce store, it's all good having a good product because obviously that's the bare minimum. You need a solid product that people are actually going to want to buy. One of the best giveaways for me when it came to that side of things was when I actually showed you that product in person. And then coincidentally, I showed some of your friends the product as well, and everyone loved it. So I was like,
Yeah,
okay, I've got something on my hands here. Any person I showed loved it. But even with that being said, it doesn't matter how good your product is, if you don't have the strategy to actually get eyeballs on it, then it's all good having all the stock in the world. It's not going to shift. Um,
100%.
you, so to answer that question, it's having a game plan in terms of marketing and having money to literally throw at it, like throw and close your eyes sort of thing, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think one thing that especially when I was starting off, and maybe you realized as well as we were going through like marketing for this new business together, was that, man, things can get expensive,
yeah,
but it always ends up paying off, right?
100%.
Yeah, and I think one thing if we could mention, like to at least make this video valuable to people watching, like
Yeah,
we should losing the attachment to money when it comes to trying to grow something that could pay dividends on your life and like be something that could actually, I guess, help you develop even as a person, because a business, in my opinion, is a reflection of self. It's
yeah,
always good to lose the attachment to the money.
yeah.
But yeah, what are your thoughts on that? What do you think?
So
Obviously, because you've live gone through it.
yeah, this kind of links to the mentorship stuff as well. But just to stick to that point, um, I've spent quite a lot of money when it comes to just in general marketing and ads before.
Yeah,
And if I have told some people I know that, like some people that are not really into business, say let's just say a round figure, like something even as small as like a grand, right? If I told someone, yeah, I spent a grand on this platform called Meta to get people to see my product as they scroll past through their feed, they're gonna think that grand could be spent on fueling the car for months. It could be spent on putting food on the table for however long, right? Um, and they're valid points. But at the end of the day, I've kind of come to the not like come to the point as in I'm now suddenly super, super successful, but come to the point in terms of mindset that that when it comes to business, you kind of have to see money as just a number, right?
yeah,
You have to just see it as like a commodity that you have to, it's like a tool, right? In your tool chest. If you don't have it, then you're going to be severely handicapped and you just have to have it and throw it.
yeah.
But have the guidance to know where to throw it.
100%. It's a good analogy to give people is if you were like those guys who want to go into some type of business and they're not clear on what they need help with and they're not actively getting the help, it's like trying to learn piano without a piano teacher, or
Yeah,
it's like trying to um compete in Premier League football without having a Premier League level
yeah,
coach to help you on the way. Like, even the best football players, soccer players in the world have the best coaches in the world, you know?
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's a very valid, good point that you brought up. I've definitely learned it, and I'm glad you feel the same way, you know?
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, it's like beyond money is also time as well. Say if you are trying to become an expert marketer in whatever niche you're in, well, your first thing to do would be to obviously accumulate that knowledge, but then also reach out to someone that has done the years and done the time to actually learn it themselves, rather than you starting from ground and working up, because that's wasting your time as well.
yeah,
You'll eventually learn it, but you'll learn it through trial and error, and we don't all
100%.
have the time for that.
The thing is, I mentioned this before, with when it comes to a lot of people are too comfortable spending their time doing things, not realizing that if you were to scale time, that is literally labor. Like the time you're putting in is labor. And if you want to scale labor, that costs you money. So the whole
Absolutely,
saying of time is money, it's quite literally true. And it's like
absolutely,
if you look at the minimum wage for the area that you're living in, look at the time that you're putting in, right? Extrapolate that out in hours, you'll quickly figure out that you are spending a whole bunch of money doing stuff that doesn't work. So you might as well just spend the money anyway in something that does work, you know?
precisely, yeah, yeah,
So yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad there was at least some type of like self-development in terms of like
100%,
opening up your mind whilst working together, which is so sick to see. I had
100%.
another question for you. Like, what before we before we were working together, you mentioned that you didn't really have much marketing knowledge, sales knowledge, experience, or anything like that. What do you think you were struggling with the most when it came to just marketing in general?
It's probably that there's so many options out there that you don't know what to actually choose. And there's so many people giving their advice and their 2 cents that you just get a bit confused and think, okay, I've got X amount of money to spend. Now I have to spend this really wisely because I don't have, it's a limited supply. Um, I don't know who to trust and I don't know what the correct strategy is. So just for a bit of extra insight, I'd say about 2 years prior to even starting Amazon FBA, so about probably 5 to 6 years ago, 5 years ago-ish, right? I ran a really small SMMA business, and the only thing I knew at the time when it came to how to market was cold outreach via cold calls. I didn't At that time there was someone that wanted to teach me how to do it, and their course was like £500. And I was like, £500, that's ridiculous. I'm never going to pay £500 for this. I was like, hell no. It's like YouTube's free. Why would I need this? And I didn't do it. And I kept on doing the same old cold calls. And I got absolutely nowhere with it after spending hours and hours and hours just on the phone getting rejections.
Yeah.
So that's probably the biggest thing I struggled with, is just because I didn't have someone tell me exactly where to put my time. So I put it somewhere useless.
100%. And like, again, naturally, spending so much time doing something, you might as well just be, I guess, pissing the money away at that
Yeah.
point, right? Because it's not, and to a degree, that's very unethical to do. Because if you think about it, if you were to scale that up, how it'd be unethical to make someone go through just the worst of the worst tasks. If that
Yeah.
makes sense,
Yeah.
So it's very interesting. It's very interesting. When you were doing like the cold calling, the cold outreach, or when you were doing marketing that wasn't working, just tell me a little bit more of like how you would feel trying to go through with the cold calling stuff.
With cold calling, we're always taught that, don't let the rejections get to you. But if you've got like 15, 20 rejections in the space of a few hours, you're not exactly going to think, oh, wow, this is working. You might have that mindset for a while, but eventually you'll get to a point where you're like, you know what, forget this. And it did get to that because I actually, you get all sorts of people on cold calls. I had a couple of people that tried to argue with me, and I was stupid enough to argue back. So, so, um, yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
I'd say it drains your brain. I know cold calling can also work, but again, the bottom line is that you need expert help, even with
yeah.
that.
I mean, you need
Yeah,
to be good at sales, right? Like you need to have had
yeah,
formal sales training to understand people's psychology when you're getting on call with them. Because naturally,
yeah,
because I've done cold calling as well before, and I completely understand how disgusting it feels being on the phone trying to call people up. Yeah, you have
yeah,
to understand that when you do cold calls, like these guys, they don't like you at all,
yeah,
and you've
yeah.
interrupted and bothered their day. At least when you do advertising and you interrupt their day on ads, like they were asking to be interrupted because they open up the platform.
Yeah,
But no
yeah,
one asks to get randomly called out of the blue just to get pitched something that they ultimately weren't even looking for in the first place.
yeah. It's the reason why when it came to doing the mentorship stuff, that I wanted to go down a route where people were approaching me, right?
Mm,
Not me begging people, be like, please let me help. It was about, okay, you need help, you come to me and I'll give it, right? And the call, the call that they booked was simply just the methodology for that. Um, Same with what I'm doing now with the agency. Um, it's specifically people that want the service that I want to deal with, not people that I have to convince.
100%. 100%. And I guess that's where marketing comes in. Like your job as the marketer is to get people to want to buy your stuff. It's why inbound marketing is incredibly important. It's just much
Yeah,
easier to run a business. And obviously, you've seen both sides of people not wanting your service and people wanting your service. You
yeah,
tell everyone like which is the easier way to sell.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's definitely the people wanting your service. I did want to quickly touch on. You did mention that a lot of guys that like there was like a trust factor that
Yep.
like you didn't really know who to trust. A lot of people do give their 2 cents online. So what actually made you want to roll with me?
I think first thing was that it shows what you said when we first started about how many times someone needs to see something. I saw your reels for a while, right? And eventually, it comes to okay, I need a marketing guy. Oh, I remember seeing this guy on my feed, and
Hmm.
you forget about it. Next time you see that guy in your feed, you then click on it, and then you see his bio, and then you think, wait, this is exactly what I need. Then you click and book a call, and then there you go. Rest is history, right?
Yeah.
So again, one was familiarity. I saw you several times. And the other thing, I think the turning point was also when we got on call and you devised a very like a you devised a very quick strategy for me, right? And I was like, okay, so he's speaking sense. But then I still had a little trust in that's maybe more some my problem rather than than yours. It was just me being me. I was like, I need to meet you. So I need
Okay.
to see you, which I know, like nowadays, if someone said I need to meet you, I just say I'm sorry, like I don't really have time for that. But you actually went ahead and did that, um, and I think that just shows because you also believed in what I was doing as well. So again, when I met you and when you talked about your strategy in further detail about the exact blueprints to it, I was like, right,
Hmm.
well, half of this stuff I don't know, right? You do, so let's do it.
Yeah. Just made sense, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
dope. That's dope. What was your so before you actually did end up joining, or before even like meeting, like what were the exact hesitations that you had?
Probably because there's all sorts of people trying to sell stuff nowadays, isn't there?
Mm,
All sorts of people that haven't really got the know-how.
yeah,
With this sort of thing, you can only really do it if you've done it yourself, if you've got the numbers to back it up. Um, like, there's no point making a business that's just teaching other people if you don't know, if you've not even taught yourself, right?
yeah,
So it was a thing that there are a lot of people in this space that have sort of tainted the name of say mentorships or like dare I use the C word courses, but that's because you got all sorts of courses are very valuable, but you really need to know which are the valuable ones, like
yeah.
not just yeah. So
What would you
I
say
guess
to someone? What would you
yeah.
say to someone who like is, I guess, hesitant? Not even with working with me, but like in general, like they're hesitant about um purchasing something that could help them learn to help them get over the edge.
Okay, so at this point they've probably established already that they need to do something about it, right?
Hmm.
They need to put their money somewhere because no one's going to give you everything for free. So what I would probably say to them is
Yeah,
use your brain a bit, get your brain a little bit, get on a call with them, hear what they have to say, and just use your intuition, trust your gut as well, and and really think about what are they saying, what is the strategy that they are proposing, and does it align with you, or are they giving you some sort of generic stuff that they probably tell everyone else? Uh,
yeah.
so yeah,
Okay, interesting. So like, so definitely take the time to research,
yeah.
watching
But
videos, things like
also
that, right?
don't be too um, over hesitant as well, because what you find is that you, your brain is scared of a lot of things without even knowing. Like, you don't even know some of the things it's scared of. It's scared of new things as well, and especially when it comes to money, because you had to spend your hours, your time, your life to earn that money, and you're putting your pretty much life now in the form of money towards something else, towards someone that's going to help you, you're going to be naturally hesitant. But you have to understand that that's just your brain's natural mechanism working there.
Mm,
You have to look at things in face value, and if something is actually going to work for you, and you can see evidence of that, then also don't sit around and ponder it for a month or two. I did ponder it for a few days, but then the second that I met you and you went through what we were going to do, I said there and then I was like, okay, cool, I'll get the money sent over in the next few days.
that's awesome. So the one thing I would say is like another perspective people should have is if you know someone is actively like posting, they're actively being like talking about stuff and you can see they're a real person, especially on like their YouTube or their content and things like that. You have to also understand that these people are running their own businesses and they can't actually afford to, scam people because that's how you get lawsuits.
True,
That's how you
very
get
true.
people coming after you, and that's so you get like extreme financial difficulties. And I don't know, like most business people online, especially, they don't want that headache because it can be
Yeah.
such a, I guess, mentally torturing thing to put yourself through. So I think having that perspective as well, like, this person, most likely, if they are posting solid content and they have some form of testimonials and case studies, they probably are not going to scam you. But
Yeah.
again, it is so difficult to see that perspective, especially if you are extremely a hesitant person because you've never really given yourself grace to invest in yourself before,
Yeah. Like I've had the pleasure of being on both sides of this, and one thing that really uh, it's so important is that for the person that's offering the services, their business is only going to function if they can provide results, right?
Yeah,
If they can't provide results, then their business instantly fails, and then they become what you call a scammer, right? But
yeah,
if someone really wants to grow their business, they have to make sure that the person they're providing the service to is satisfied with what they're getting. So
exactly.
yeah, I guess you can feel assured there as well that this guy needs to help me because he's got no other choice.
Exactly. And especially with how the banking services and things like that, how much they favor the consumer when it
Yeah,
comes to like disputes and chargebacks, things like that.
yeah,
It's not actually as scary as, you know, you think it is in your own mind. So it's a very valid point. I'm glad we actually touched on this. But
yeah, 100%.
that out of the way, let's go into like very quickly transition to like what it was actually like working together. So Harry, you tell me like your experience of going through us working together. What was that like for you?
So I think the first thing I did was I didn't want to appear like a complete noob. So I went through all your module content because it's like then I've got something of substance to ask as well when it comes to the one-to-ones.
Hmm.
I feel like 90% of this whole thing was the one-to-ones, right? As in 90% of the value I got out of the one-to-ones
Of
because it's
course,
then
yeah.
personalized help as well. And then it's sort of okay, having a problem with this, right? Let me just walk you through it. Um,
Hmm.
like for example, say if I remember I had a few sales calls, and then post that I was feeling like, yeah, this isn't going the way I want it to. And then you said, okay, just record those calls. And then we got on a call after you watched those calls, and then you gave me pointers about um where I can improve. And I think the part that stood out was that you actually went out your way and spent your own money to to get like even further, like with even more expert knowledge, right? And then it came to me about, look what I've just got. Let's go through this, implemented it, and then I guess the numbers speak for themselves, which I
Yeah,
guess we can go into in a bit more detail in a bit.
100%. For those of you guys watching wanted to know what I spent, complete transparency, I spent 12,000 USD for. I don't want to say for Harry, but yeah, it was like I spent it for myself
Is
and
that the
Harry.
catalyst? I guess to be fair,
Yeah,
yeah, catalyst, yeah,
Harry was definitely the catalyst that made me go through with it because I wanted to get him the results um, into a sales program, and I just fed him all the information that we needed
yeah.
to know. And that being said, of course, the marketing was unlocked. We were getting the sales calls booked in. Everything was happening. We had. I mean, you tell me, like, how fast did we get the first sales call booked in?
I can tell you exactly. To be honest, it was so we launched the ads, and obviously when you launch them, there's a bit of time where they have to get approved and whatever. At this
Hmm.
point, I went to Specsavers because I had an optician's appointment, and I was waiting in the queue, and then I get a notification from Meta that there's like it's so surprising that that there's a call being booked, and then it's after 15 minutes of it launching exactly,
Hmm.
and then about another 10 minutes later, another call booked. Um, my Calendly, and then it just kept rolling in. It got a bit too much where I actually had to limit it slightly and put my hours. At first, I just had my hours to like any time, and then I was like, okay, let me stick to 9 to 5. But I also feel like I'm not trying to just sugarcoat it as well because I feel like there is an element that to me that I was quite lucky, right, to get there that fast. Um, I have confidence that this does work for almost anyone, but for some people it might not be 15 minutes. It might be a few
Yeah,
days, a couple of weeks. That's a part of the process. You got to embrace that. I just got lucky,
100%. Yeah,
but
and it
yeah,
depends. I've got some data on this. It does depend on the industry. So if you are
yeah,
more bigger B2B, naturally there are fewer of those companies, those people that exist. So it's going to be harder to reach those people, and so it will take a little bit longer. And you might have to spend a bit more money on ads. But
yeah,
that being
yeah.
said, like the truth is the truth. You ended up booking in your first sales call, and again we mentioned your average order value was how much? 3,000 USD, wasn't it?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, so your first sales call for the 3K offer was booked within 15, and then 10 minutes, then you had another one at 15. Um, we had something special happen, like at the 14-day mark. Do you want to tell me how many calls you ended up booking in by the second week?
I've actually got it up in front. I don't entirely remember. I think I can literally just look at the spreadsheet because that tracker thing you gave was
Yeah, the
good.
tracking sheet.
There was 61 calls, 62 calls, I think it was. Yeah, 61 calls in the first 2 weeks
Hmm.
that were booked. I
Yeah,
tell you, it was a busy 2 weeks. Like,
yeah, a lot of calls to take, and then by the end of the 30 days, it lets us skip the calls. How about we go into the top line revenue? Like, how much did you actually end up making in revenue for that month?
in those 2 weeks, about 17 and a half in USD. Just looked at it
Yeah,
now. Yeah,
and then what about the
yeah,
30
very
days?
30 days. So I think that came to 28.
28K USD.
Maybe that's
Amazing.
27 and
And
a
then
half or 28, pretty much if you round it. Yeah.
yeah, so that's like just to round it, yeah, 28, 27,
That's
28,
so
same thing.
that's in terms of deals made. So in terms of like how many people, how I gave them the offer, which is average 3K, and how many of them said, yeah, I'm happy to proceed with it. It equates to about 28K worth.
Yeah. So 28K in deals closed. Awesome. And then how about this
Yeah.
is the number that most guys want to know as well. How much did you actually end up spending in advertising? Because I'm not quite sure myself.
So for that 1 month, £1,247.84.
£1,200. So what's that in USD? About it's $1,600 you spent. Just
Yep, yep. Yeah, I remember when
$1,600
I
in ad
was
spend to get
like
the 28K.
complaining.
But that being said, this should shine light on like the model itself of running paid advertisements to get calls booked. Even if you like, let's say you even book 10 calls in 2 weeks of like sales calls instead of 60 calls. Like, Harry, you tell me, like, I'm surely that's better than the cold calling attempts that you're doing or trying to blast organic content,
Yeah, because
you know?
cold calling is free when it comes to how much money you're spending towards it, but not free when it comes to how much time you're spending towards it.
Exactly, exactly. Now, of course, that's like a large amount of money, like in terms of deals to be closing.
Yep.
How can you go into, like, I guess, what did that actually do for you in terms of like what were you considering doing back then if you were to carry on before you made the hard pivot?
Okay, so I'll start off by saying when I got my biggest, because obviously I didn't, for the majority of them, I didn't collect 3K just there and then. It was obviously a bit of a deposit, but when I first got a big deposit of 2K, I remember I went downstairs. I was living with my friend. I went downstairs. I was like, bro, like this is a thing. You know when people have that moment where they're like, okay, so I've been spending years grinding, like on different
Hmm.
businesses. By far, I think I've done it. Like I think I've cracked what I need to do now to just make it big and get to the point that this is when I was like strongly considering. I was like, I need to retire my dad, and this is going to enable that. So it was quite a surreal feeling.
100%. The one thing I want to mention, like, as crazy as it is for you as well, like, dude, it's crazy to hear. Like, even as I'm like hearing that again, I remember you telling me the first time. Now hearing that again, it's definitely something special. In terms of actual
Yeah.
mindset itself, how do you think your mindset, your business acumen has changed before working with me and afterwards?
Okay, so I love that the answer just immediately came to my mind because it goes back to what was it? It was one of the calls we had. and then you got up, was it Miro or whatever? You got up
Yeah,
Miro,
yeah, yeah.
and then you drew a graph. Do you know what graph I'm on about?
The
Have a
Bellman
guess.
curve. The
That's
that one.
it. That's it. And I was like, hey, I'm not going to become the one on the far right. I'm not going to become super intelligent. I don't think I need to. Let me just become a bit dumber. So I was like, let me dumb it down a bit. Let me stop thinking and more doing. Let me just sort of put the work in and just like, because obviously we're both Sikh. We believe in hukum, right? We believe that what's going to happen is going to happen, right? So you just do the work you need to do and leave the rest in my lap. You like the rest is not in my hands, and that really
Yeah,
speaks to the left side of the curve as well. Because like I'm not going to be that. I'm not. I'm never going to be super intelligent. But if I'm only intelligent, then I'm going to be hyper analyzing everything. Let me dumb it down and just action it out.
yeah. I think a big thing is like if you have been set a game plan, especially if you pay for it, you best go through with every single thing because ultimately, like that's what's going to get you to go and actually get results rather than trying to over optimize, over analyze, and ultimately end up in a much worse position. You know,
Right.
that's awesome. That's awesome. Do you?
Yeah.
Last question from me then. With all the new changes that have come as well, everything that we've spoken about, the entire experience from A to our point currently, even in our like professional relationship, would you recommend people working with me or not?
Well, you have to just look at the numbers and look at the outcome of it. So that alone would make it a yes. I think because I'm not trying to like just say this stuff because I'm on a call where I'm expected to as well. Like I don't, there's at this point I'm just talking completely honestly because I don't want to lie, right? That's not what I'm here for. But um, you do try as hard as you can. Like you're not going to say, "Yeah, I can't help you. Sorry about that." It's like if you're struggling with something, you'll make sure you find a way to fix it. And you're not going to rest until you do it. So the answer to that would be yes. I do recommend you.
100%. So, guys, hopefully that was extremely valuable in terms of the insight you get. Yes, of course, working with me, but what it's like growing a six-figure run rate company, coaching business, service-based business, especially high ticket. Harry, hopefully we will catch you back soon as you continue growing the new venture that you've gone into, which is a marketing agency. And of course, if any of you guys have an e-commerce store and you need someone extremely good with Amazon marketing, hit up SellersMint. I'll drop all of his contact information down below in the description so you can go ahead and obviously get in touch and get the help that you need.